Thank you so much. It's my absolute pleasure to be here. I am Dave Karger. I am the host of a show called Frontrunners that airs on Fandango and Access Hollywood. And if you were to ask me what my favorite movie of 2014 is, and in fact I put this on my Twitter, the answer is Wild. I am absolutely crazy about this film. So it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you a past Screen Actors Guild Award winner and a current Best Actress SAG Award nominee for Wild, Reese Witherspoon.
Oh my gosh, sit down. Hi, how are you? What a nice turnout. This is so exciting. I'm so touched. Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Now, the way that these Q&As work, these are a little bit different because we're not just going to talk about Wild. We're going to go through your entire career. So sit back.
Oh boy.
And we're going to do a little memory lane.
Oh Lord.
And what's great about you is that you started out as a child actor.
In the 1700s.
Before I start asking you about Man on the Moon, which was your first film, I'd like to know how performing as a concept even entered your consciousness.
Oh, I always struggled to figure that out because I know I wanted to be an actor since the time I was about 7 years old. And it didn't make any sense because I grew up in Nashville, Tennessee, and my dad was a doctor and my mom was a nurse. And I don't know. I ended up telling my mom I really wanted to be an actress, and my neighbor had a flower shop and they did a commercial down the street, and then they asked me to be in it, and that was it. I was like, I've got to do this. And as a little kid, from the time I was 7 years old, every Saturday I would go for 4 hours of acting class every Saturday.
Whoa.
And I loved it. I just loved it. To the point where all the kids graduated and went on to this other stuff, and I started doing adult acting classes, and then I was in the commercial classes, and then I loved like the hair and makeup classes and just everything. I just couldn't get enough.
So let's go back to the flower commercial.
Yeah.
What did you do in it?
Well, I remember I was really super short, so they had to put me on 3 phone books. Remember when there were phone books? And I don't know, I just had to be super happy about flowers.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, Man on the Moon, you find out that there's an open casting call.
Yeah.
My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that you're going in thinking you might have a shot at like a bit part.
Right. I'd been doing local commercials in Nashville, like for radio stations and air conditioners and stuff like that, and acting competitions and things like in Atlanta and New York. And then there was an ad in the paper in Nashville and said, "Do you want to be in a movie?" And I was like, "Yeah, I do." And I thought I was just going to be an extra, and I just went down to this like blind audition, and they were all grown-ups, and then me at the very end. My dad dropped me off. I stood in line. I think I was 14.
Right.
And I ended up standing in line for a couple hours, and I finally got in there, and they said, "Who dropped you off?" I was like, "My dad dropped me off. He's going to come back and pick me up." And she said, "Well, can you act?" I said, "Yes, I can." She said, "Well, can you read these lines?" I said, "Okay." And I remember the casting director. Her name was Sherry Rhodes.
Wow.
And and then I didn't hear anything. And about a month later, they called me out to LA to do a screen test, and with Robert Mulligan, who directed To Kill a Mockingbird, which was unbelievable. And I got the lead of the movie after my screen test, which was crazy.
So when did you start kind of having the fantasy that you could actually get this part? Was it before you got the call back, or not until the moment you heard you had that call back?
I think I learned to mitigate my expectations. So even like doing the commercials actually helped because I understood that there's a lot of rejection, and I started understanding that from the time I was about 12, and I was determined anyway. Like that to me is what an actor is. Like you get the door slammed shut, you're like, I'm gonna do it anyway. Or that might be the definition of crazy. Which is kind of the same thing. But no, and then I don't know, I didn't hear from them for 2 months, and then out of nowhere they called, and I remember walking in from softball practice and picked up the phone, and they were like, "You got the part."
Wow.
Which was crazy. And then I had to go to Louisiana for the whole summer.
Which is where you were born.
Yeah,
right?
I'm from New Orleans, yeah.
Right.
Rachel.
One of the things that people love about Man on the Moon, love about your performance, is the innocence, the first kiss, the young love. Had you experienced that already and you drew from that, or was this just completely invented for this character?
Let me think. I think it was probably, I was still young. I was 14, so I hadn't ever really had a boyfriend.
Right.
I think I'd kissed a guy once.
Right.
So, but I thought I was very experienced. I brought a lot of sense memory to the table. But no, and I remember the 17-year-old boy was so horrified that he had to kiss me, and it was just terrible.
Oh no. Jason London?
Jason London, yeah.
Right.
But it was great. We all were young together,
And Sam Waterston was in the movie too.
Yeah.
So that must have been pretty cool.
he was so great. And this was like before Law and Order, and he was just this incredible theater actor, and he just was really helpful to me. And we had like almost a month of rehearsals with the amazing Robert Mulligan, the director from To Kill a Mockingbird and, Summer of 42, and just incredible that he helped nurture us, and he gave me so much advice that I still use to this day. Like, I was so nervous in a scene, and he made me chew gum. And when I started chewing gum, I just relaxed, and I was like, and I still use it sometimes. If I'm nervous, I'll chew gum or eat something in a scene, and actually kind of makes you concentrate on something else.
I like that. And you've kind of come full circle, because then you just recently did Inherent Vice with Sam Waterston's daughter, Catherine, which is crazy.
I know, it's crazy. She was like, I met you on the set, and you were 14 and I was 12.
Oh my God.
It was so crazy, yeah.
When's the last time you watched Man the Moon?
I showed it to my kids probably 3 years ago.
What did they think?
They loved it, but I think it's all surreal for them. It's just bizarre to see your mom doing. My daughter watched Wild the other day, and it's just intense, Yeah. I think it's hard to say that's my mom and that's a character. Is it,
And your older kids, what's their age in relation to being 14 and Man the Moon?
My daughter's 15 and a half.
Oh my God, so that's right there.
So yeah. So and sometimes I look at her and I think, I was a professional actor standing on sets when I was younger than that. And she can barely remember her backpack, and I was like, and I was expected to show up and be on time and know all my lines, and it's a little weird. I don't know what drove me, but I was driven.
I love it.
Yeah.
So you did some TV films around the same time as Man the Moon. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit because I'm interested in the fact that you applied to Stanford University.
Yes.
Got in, went for a full year, but then decided that there were other opportunities that you were wanting to pursue. Was that something like the movie Fear, or was it Freeway? What were the projects that you said, I got to get out of here?
Well, yeah, my parents insisted that I go to college, so I applied to Stanford. I couldn't believe I got in because I didn't get in anywhere else. But I got into Stanford, and I met the woman who read my essay, and she was like, I read your essay, I let you. I was like, thank you, because I had no other option. But I stopped out. It was really expensive, and I was making more money making movies than to pay my tuition, and I was either going to accumulate all these student loans and bills or start a career that I knew I loved. And I wasn't sure. The first year I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll go into pre-med or something. But then I auditioned for a movie with that Robert Benton directed, who directed Kramer versus Kramer, and it was a movie with Paul Newman.
Twilight.
Yeah, it was called Twilight,
right.
Which is, now Twilight is something else. But and
Gene Hackman and Susan Sarandon.
Yeah, Gene Hackman and Susan Sarandon were my parents, and it was like a 3-scene role, but it was such a huge opportunity. It really got momentum going for me in the business because Robert Benton helped. He called Gary Ross, and then he put me in Pleasantville, and then Gary Ross called Alexander Payne, and they put me in Election. So it was kind of momentum.
Twilight was pretty racy, though, as I recall. Your stuff, wasn't it?
Yeah. There was nudity, and I was kind of like this ballsy girl, and I was so scared. I was so scared, but I thought, I really liked how he dealt with nudity in Kramer versus Kramer. It wasn't this salacious thing. It was actually like a way to confront, it was a way I was confronting Paul Newman in the movie, and I was being very sort of loud and brash. And then it was so funny. I went to the premiere, and I'm sitting there, and I'm so nervous, and because he kept coming to the scene, and I'm naked, and he comes in, and he sees me, and I go, oh! And then I was supposed to have all this other scene, and they cut my scene. So So it's just all me, just naked. And that was like a really good lesson for me. So I didn't do nudity for the whole, like, until Wild.
Right, wow.
Where I was in control.
Right.
And I knew I could get rid of it if I wanted to.
Wow, that's interesting.
And I know I could use it the way I wanted it to be used instead of other people deciding how they were going to show me or my body. So.
We mentioned Freeway. Let's talk about that one, because from what I understand, that was one that was a hurdle for you. That's the one that's kind of the dark, twisted take on Little Red Riding Hood with Brooke Shields and Kiefer Sutherland, and you were just like so brash. And that one frightened you a little bit, didn't it? But I felt like when you did that, you felt you had accomplished something pretty cool.
Yeah, and that was doing Freeway was really cool for me because that's when I learned what comedy was. Because I didn't think it was funny at all. I was just playing a very serious Texas girl who is in the penal system, and she's sort of a jail baby, and she's in and out. And I just played it really straight. And we went to Sundance, the movie premiered at Sundance, and people were like laughing so hard and like hugging themselves laughing at this, at this character with really strong convictions and a really strong accent. And I thought I was doing high drama. And I was like, oh, that's what comedy is. Like comedy is just committing. It's committing like to an extreme, And
it's not yuck yuck. It's
actually just never laughing at your own jokes, like being that. So committed to who that person is, where they're from, their comedy, and never, ever, ever laughing at that person. Taking it as seriously as they take themselves. So that was a huge learning experience for me.
And what about Fear? Because Fear is the great one with Mark Wahlberg, where you guys go out and he becomes obsessed and super jealous. And I feel like that was a turning point for him. I think that was an experience where a lot of people started looking at him. I guess he had done Basketball Diaries, but people started looking at him as an actual actor from that one. What was your experience like working with him?
Right. Well, I know Mark was kind of coming off the Calvin Klein campaign and trying to be taken seriously in Hollywood, and Jamie Foley, the director, gave him a really great shot to be the lead of a movie. So it was the first time he was a lead of a movie. But it was great. It was, that was my only experience that I had doing like kind of a thriller or a genre movie. And to be totally honest, as a woman, there's not a lot for you to do in those movies.
Except be scared. Right.
And I was like, this is not, my skill set is not really this.
Right.
I'm not that person who's frightened, and it's not what I do well. So that was a learning experience. I loved doing the movie with them. I felt sort of like, I don't know, a little like, what am I doing here? I don't know.
But probably for the exposure, I mean, that was 96, so I was 23 years old at the time, and that was like, Fear was coming out. You had to see that movie. It was like Reese Witherspoon and Mark Wahlberg. You had to see it, and the roller coaster and everything, right?
The roller coaster, yeah.
So I guess it served its purpose.
There's a famous roller coaster scene if you haven't seen it. It's a really sexy song.
It's a good scene. Going forward a couple of years, I want to talk about Pleasantville.
Yes.
Because you mentioned Gary Ross. That film was so great, and for people who don't remember, it's got that great mix of the black and white and the color sequences, and it's Reese and Tobey Maguire, Joan Allen, Jeff Daniels, I think, Bill Macy, the dream cast. That must have been interesting, and I'm sure it provided some...
Paul Walker, right.
It
was his first movie, I think.
Yeah. And some technical challenges, I'm sure, as well, with all of the black and white to color. What was that like to do?
Yeah, that was really cool. I auditioned really hard to get that movie, and it was hard. I think I auditioned like 7 or 8 times. With Toby, without Toby, and Toby and I, really bonded over that experience. But there were technical aspects of, color correcting the black and white. Now I'm sure it's so easy, but the movie slowly turns to color as they become more self-aware. It was beautiful costumes, and that was sort of my first experience of being on a big set with constructed sets out in Malibu Canyon. They built an entire city. I was like, oh my God, this is like a real movie. I didn't know if anybody had that kind of money to make a movie.
And then the next year was Cruel Intentions,
yeah.
Which was, everybody was talking about that film, with the update of Dangerous Liaisons, and such an amazing cast on that one as well, right?
Well, yeah, I was, the time I was living with my boyfriend, Ryan Philippi, and he was doing it with Sarah Michelle Gellar, and they couldn't find the third lead. And I was like, well, I don't know who you guys are going to get. And he was like, and he and the director took me out to dinner, and I was like, what do you want? And they said, we want you to do the part. And I really did not want to do that part. I just didn't.
Why?
I didn't get it. I didn't understand. I didn't see myself as that character either. She was written very sort of like a limp noodle, and I was like, this is not fun. And so I said, well, I'll think about it, but we gotta make her, have some sort of ferocity of spirit or some sort of something. She needs a spine, And so we rewrote the character to be more of a feminist, and it turned out really cool. Yeah. It was really fun making that movie.
Yeah, and that got a lot of attention. I feel like that was
we made that for no money.
Right.
Yeah.
The same year, '99 brought Election,
it
was just one of the classic roles in films of your career. What was your first reaction when you read Tracy Flick and saw what she was going to be doing?
I was like, I have to do this part. I have to do this part. And I remember going in, I read the script and I just thought it was amazing. And then my boyfriend at the time, Ryan, said, have you seen Citizen Ruth? And I hadn't seen Citizen Ruth. So we were at Sundance and he had seen it. And
starring Laura Dern.
And it was called Meet Ruth Stoops, and then it was Alexander Payne's first full-length feature. Mm-hmm. And I saw it, and y'all, if you haven't seen that movie, it is so good. It's classic Alexander Payne, where it's middle of America. They're dealing with both sides of abortion, pro-rights and pro-choice, and and all that stuff. And then it's just great. And I was blown away. And then I went in to meet with him, and I just looked at him, and he said hello. He always wears a suit on Tuesdays. I don't know why. I know what day it was because he was wearing a suit. Wow. And he said hello. And I said, I just want to let you know, I'm the right person for this part. You can cast somebody else, but you'll be wrong.
Oh, and that's so Tracy Flick.
And I don't even know why I did it. I was just so in the character. And about a week later, I got the call and I got the part.
Wow.
But I will say, I feel like a lot of the times people audition, and I know this is a ripple actor, so it's important I say this to actors all the time. People just want to be told what to do. Sometimes they have so many decisions to make, they just want the decisions to be taken away from them and just to go, give me the ball, I'm not going to disappoint you, I promise, and I'm going to work to the best of my ability, and I'm going to work hard for you, and sometimes that just, it's such a relief to somebody who has to answer 200 million questions a day.
You're there to make their life easier.
Yeah, I was like, I got it. Don't worry about it. I got it.
Wow. So when you're filming a movie like Election, do you just feel like things are clicking and this is going to be a big deal?
Yeah, sometimes you just read something and it just gets in you, and I don't know where I came up with her voice or her accent. I started spending a lot of time in Omaha where we shot the movie, and then I started having an Omaha accent like that. Mm-hmm. And then there was a funny kind of walk she did. And Alexander and I kind of, I don't know, I just went in and I said, I think she kind of walks like this. And he was like, great, let's do it. And then he likes to talk in analogies of a lot of this is like Lady Macbeth, and she's washing her hand after she tears down the post. She's like, she's washing her hands like out damn spot. And he goes, and then I want you to cover your mouth against the wall and act like you're Janet Leigh in Psycho. But it all comes through in the movie. I mean, and literally he's like, I want you, and I remember one scene where we were, I find out that I won, my character won the election, but I basically rigged it or something, and I can't remember. But and then I'm supposed to celebrate, and he said, she celebrates by hugging herself, and I was like, so we stood there, and I'm alone in the hallway, and I'm hugging myself, and he's like, that's not right. And he's like, I want you to jump up and down. So I started jumping up and down. He's like, no, put your feet together and act like you're a pole and jump up and down like a pogo stick. And that's what it ended up being. Great. And he was just great with physicality and using animal metaphors, and you're a panther walking down the... He was one of my favorite directors because he's so fun, yeah.
Did he ever throw you a movie reference and you had no idea what he was talking about?
Oh, all the time. He's such a cinephile, and he did the rear view projection with Matthew Broderick, and it was all about Italian cinema and Marcello Mastroianni, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'd have to go home at night and like Google everything he said.
That's so good. And now, for people that don't know, 16 years later, you're gonna work with him again?
Yeah, I mean,
maybe?
It's funny, they put that out. Yeah, he asked me to do his next movie, which is really cool. It's a very cool movie. And
Downsizing.
Yeah, Downsizing. With Matt Damon, but Matt Damon's not available this year, so hopefully next year.
Okay.
He's a busy guy.
I'm still excited for it.
I'm available. So if anybody else has something for me to do for this year.
Oh my God. So now I want to fast forward a year to 2000 where you did something very high profile in your career that was not a movie. It was a TV show, Friends.
Oh, Friends.
2 episodes as Jen Aniston's sister.
Little sister,
How did that come about?
Thank you. Well, I had a baby, and I was sitting at home on the couch for probably 2 to 3 months trying to figure out what to do with this baby because I was 22 years old or something, and I had a baby and I didn't know what to do with her. So I just obsessively watched Friends. I thought they became my friends, and I belonged there. And I called my agent, and I said, I want to be there. I want to be
in Central Perk.
At Central Perk. These people know me, and I know them. And he was like, okay, well. And then I guess something came up, and they had written me a part, and I went and did it. And it was hard. It was actually really hard for me.
Why?
Because I'd never done television, and I'd never done half-hour sitcom, which is a whole other muscle. It's a whole other skill set that I have so much respect for those 6 actors that they did that every single week, made it fresh, made it funny. They just really honed the parts of themselves that were super appealing, and I was just flailing out there the whole time. I didn't know if things were funny, and just Jen Aniston was great, and David Schwimmer was great. Those are the main 2 people I had to work with. But I remember getting off and I was like, I'm never, ever, ever doing this again. This is so hard. It was really hard. They asked me to come back and I was like, I'm too scared. It was too hard.
Has it been fun for you this season because at all of these shows, the Golden Globes and the Critics' Choice and now SAG, you're nominated and so is Jen.
So
you guys are sure running into each other all the time.
It's been so great. You know, because as actors, we're not, it's just like, you're thrown onto a set and you have to immediately make a family. Every situation, it's a collaborative medium. Anybody thinks they're working by themselves is crazy. You need that whole group of people to survive and to create something really great. So it's so weird to get to award season and it's like, well, individuals and the media will kind of pit people against each other. Nobody feels any of that. Everybody's just like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to hang out with these people. And because we're so used to making a little family. So it's almost like you make little families during award season too. But, Julianne Moore and Laura Dern and I went to dinner the other night and hanging out with Felicity Jones. And like, this is just great, incredible people that you are so in awe of. And usually as women, we don't get to work with other women. So it's really fun to spend time with them.
I like that. You've said that after Election, even though that movie did so well and got so much acclaim, you got a Golden Globe nomination for it. You've said that it was hard for you after that to get roles that you were happy with, that maybe people identified you so much with Tracy Flick that it hindered you.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
I mean, I had one studio, the studio had hated me so much in that movie, he wouldn't see me for any of the movies. So like, there were, out of 8 studios, I probably had 2 studios where like, they thought I was Tracy Flick. They were like, no, she's unappealing, she's unattractive, I don't like that girl. And
it's called acting.
I know, but they wouldn't even see me for a general meeting. So I had to that's when I kind of started to rethink what I needed to do next in order to change people's opinion. Because I got that over, and it was really hard for me to get jobs after that.
Well, then along comes Legally Blonde.
Right.
And I'm intrigued by what I've read was your first impression of Elle Woods, that some people might not like her, that you weren't sure if you liked her when you first read her.
Right. Well, when I first read it, I was nervous that it was sort of all fluff and no heart. And we had to kind of go back in, and I was just nervous that the whole movie could be confection and considered just sort of this movie about a bimbo, and that's not, to me, what I wanted it to be. And I really went back and forth. And then when I finally decided to do the movie and committed to it, we went back in with the screenwriters who were great and just wrote sort of a more thoughtful character arc about this woman who's never been taken seriously in her life and completely underestimated. Like no one ever, even her parents, think she's a bimbo and an idiot. And then she gets to college, her boyfriend thinks she's an idiot. And then she gets to Harvard, and their whole class thinks she's an idiot. And then I was like, I just had so much compassion for her. And when I was trying to decide to do the movie too, I was watching Bravo, and Gloria Steinem was on talking about Private Benjamin and how important that was for women. That message that you can be feminine, but also be a feminist. You know, that you don't have to, that you can like to get your nails done, your hair done, but still believe that, you know, women can accomplish anything, and how important that was. And I thought, I somehow connected the dots, and I was like, that's who Elle is. She's a modern feminist.
I like that. Was it hard to get the tone right on that? Because, I mean, it is a movie that's silly, but it does have such heart, and it's so surprising in a lot of ways. Was that something that was it Robert Luketic who
Yeah, no, he was great, because he brings a lot of fun to the character and the world and creates sort of colorful world. He's a very imaginative, creative guy. And then Mark Platt, who produced it, who also did Into the Woods and Rachel Getting Married, he's an incredible producer. He and I kind of really worked on grounding the character, and it really just takes a few scenes. You set it up a little bit in the beginning, and then, you know, you have to find that moment that, I always call it the key to the character, which is that one scene that tells you, that kind of breaks your heart. It's like, oh wait, I never really saw that person until then.
Huh. Do you recall what that scene is in Legally Blonde?
Yeah, she's in the she's in the nail salon, and she's talking to Paulette, Jennifer Coolidge, and she says, no one ever expected anything of me. My parents always wanted me to be a Victoria's Secret model, and I knew I could be more. If somebody believed in me, and then she's like, and then I realized I have to believe in myself, or something like that.
I like that. Well, then you were on a roll there, because the year after Legally Blonde was Sweet Home Alabama, which is a character, Melanie, that apparently was someone that you really saw yourself in a way, and related to, from what I understand.
Yeah. That was a cool part, because I knew there were a bunch of girls that had already passed on it, read it and passed it, and it was one of those scripts that was laying around. And they sent it to me right after Legally Blonde, and I was like, this is me. This person that's gone away and thinks they have this great life, but really, you know, the second you go home, everybody's like, what? I mean, honestly, I'm not even kidding. The first time I took my husband back to Nashville, I took him to lunch at this place, and literally outside there was a Civil War reenactment. And the people standing in line, he's like, is this a joke? I said, no, I grew up, like, we'd have to go to Civil War reenactments, and my dad dressed in the memorabilia, and it was actually, so it felt really close to home for me.
I remember seeing that film, and I remember going to the premiere of that film and talking to you. This was 13 years ago, and I was like, I liked the movie, but God, I would have chosen Patrick Dempsey. And that was right when, I think he started on Grey's Anatomy, like right after that or something. So you guys were very prescient.
Well, Disney had made our film, and then Disney produces, or is ABC Disney.
Right.
So they loved him in that movie so much that they, I think, chose him to be the lead of Grey's, which he's amazing, and he's so smart and so handsome. I know, it was a tough choice between those two guys.
I know.
I think that's why the movie worked.
Nothing wrong with Josh Lucas, by the way.
Yeah, he's great too.
I want to talk about the movie Vanity Fair, and I remember interviewing you for that one as well. And I just love that one for you because you got to work with Mira Nair, who I just think is fabulous.
She's cool.
And that was an interesting shoot for you because you were pregnant during that, but I think you felt like it worked for the character because it added like a sumptuousness to you.
It added something. I've been pregnant 3 times. Every single time I've said, I am not working during this pregnancy. I am not gonna work. I'm gonna enjoy it. I'm gonna lay around. I'm gonna put my feet up. And every single time I've made a movie. I did American Psycho when I was pregnant with Ava.
Okay.
I did Vanity Fair when I was pregnant with Deacon. And then I did a movie called Devil's Knot when I was pregnant with Tennessee.
Oh my God.
And all of them were hard and about kind of harder subject matter too.
Right. Yeah.
So
that was asking for trouble.
Yeah, but the Vanity Fair was I mean, amazing, you know, to do one of those beautiful costume movies where 3 hours of wigs and an hour of corsets, and they had to build a corset for me that had a hole in it for my pregnancy.
Oh, no.
And I just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And Mira and I was like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? So I started carrying rugs in front of it, and then like a basket like this. It's kind of ridiculous when you see the movie. And one of my favorite like behind the scenes photos I've ever had was me, because you know when you're pregnant you're just so tired, and they bought me a lawn chair, like a total ghetto lawn chair. And there I am in full like 18th century clothing with my wig, like fully like asleep in the lawn chair between scenes.
Oh, that's great.
It's so funny to me.
The following year, 2005, what movie am I about to talk about?
I don't know.
Walk the Line.
Okay.
So great. The SAG Award win, the Oscar win, I mean, that must have been a whole dream come true. But to go back, my understanding is that you were terrified at the idea of singing live.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we started rehearsing. We rehearsed for 7 months before we ever shot anything with T-Bone Burnett, who coached us basically how to be country music singers. And Joaquin, I've never seen an actor so dedicated to performance. He worked all day, all night. He had a band. Every day we'd go shoot all day, and then he'd go play all night long. Really? And I don't think I even met Joaquin until like a year later.
Wow.
He was gone. He was Johnny. We had to call him JR during the shooting, and even when we were rehearsing for 7 months, he was JR. He wasn't Joaquin. It was just an intense process, and he had to play guitar. I had to play auto harp. You know, learning instruments, doing the recordings, which is so terrifying. I called my lawyer a bunch of times and was like, "Get me out of this movie." He's like, "Are you being serious?" I was like, "Get me out of this movie. I can't do it. It's going to be a joke. It's going to be like when they record people and they play it back and they all make fun of them."
Oh.
And
Did he try to get you out?
He tried to get me out, but he called me back. He's like, "You can't get out. It's done."
Wait. So when your lawyer calls whoever, the studio, the producers, whatever, does the producer then come to you and like, what's going on? Are you okay? Did this cause a drama? Or did it stay behind the scenes?
No, I mean, I don't know if they like really didn't call and kind of pretended that they called and then told me I had to do it anyway, which is probably what they have been doing for about 20 years. Because it's before every movie I get in a panic, but this was a heightened
right.
panic. We had like a bucket off stage that we literally had to throw up, all of us. We were so scared. Because we go in to do these performance scenes in front of 600 people. And we're not singers. It was terrifying. You know those people you read, actors, you read, profiles, and you're like, they're singing the whole time, like show tunes, and you're like, that's not us. That was not Joaquin and I. We were like, oh my God, this is awful. We don't know what we're doing.
So how did you get to a point where you felt like, okay, I'm ready to do this? Or did you never really feel ready?
I never felt good about it.
Wow.
I never felt, well, I always felt better when Joaquin was there. And I think you see that in our performances because we were so connected. Like when he was like my security blanket and I was his, and when we were together, we had more confidence.
What's your recollection of the Oscar night?
The Oscar night, I have to say, sitting there, I think about it now too, it was a while ago, and I was 29 years old, and that was just a lot for someone who's 29 years old, And I think it's sort of equal parts you're sitting there going, please don't call my name, please don't call my name, and then equal parts, please call my name, please call my name, and that ambivalence, like you're just torn. And then the pressure of like, what do you say, what do you say that encapsulates your life? That all the people you want to thank, and there's no time, and what really matters, the people you played, and the opportunity to get to tell stories in this life, and what a privilege that is to be a storyteller in this world.
Where did the SAG Award and the Oscar live?
They're right there in my front room next to some macaroni art, and the Oscar has a little Christmas hat it wears. And it has a little tuxedo that it wears at the Oscars.
I love that.
You know those like little things you can slip over a wine bottle? We put that on. I got them in Chinatown.
Oh, that's great. The next one I want to talk about.
And I let people hold it too.
Oh, good. Yeah.
If you come to my house, I'll let people hold it. I said, but I have one rule. You have to give a speech.
Okay. I love it.
If you have to give a speech that encapsulates everything that you mean and what matters to you in this life, just think about it and go.
I love
it. Now you know what it's like to win an Oscar.
That's great.
Terrifying.
Name the time. I'm there.
Okay.
The next one I want to ask you about is a movie that I think a lot of people didn't see because it kind of came and went and no one seemed to care. Rendition, which I thought was really good. And the thing I like about it for you is that you got to work with Meryl Streep.
I know, that was
which
cool.
must have been, talk about frightening, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
And she was tough in that movie.
She was tough
too.
in that one. I think, you have these surreal moments over and over again, and you have to just kind of power through them because you're not allowed to go, oh my God, you're Meryl Streep.
Right.
And I had to have was doing this performance where I'm like dramatically screaming. I'm like, I wonder what she's thinking. I wonder if she thinks that was too big. Should I go back and do it again? But she was so great and lovely and just really complimentary and nice. It was, but it was a movie about, the U.S. policy on torture, and I think probably the world wasn't ready to see that kind of thing.
What I find really interesting is I was looking through the awards that you've won, and in 2008 and 2009, you were the People's Choice Award winner for Favorite Female Movie Star, and yet you've spoken a lot about how those years you felt not very satisfied professionally. You didn't feel like you were getting the stuff that you wanted, but yet you were the People's Choice. That must have been a strange time where
Yeah, I wouldn't characterize that whole time period as just void. I think, I really enjoyed some movies I did. Four Christmases was so fun. Working with Vince Vaughn, he's literally the funniest person I've ever met in my entire life. And, sometimes I've learned through, meeting fans and that sometimes the comedies have such a more profound impact than the dramas. People watch them in hospitals, they watch them on holidays, they connect family, they lift you up when you feel like crap, Everybody has a favorite movie or two favorite movies, and I guarantee your favorite movie when you're feeling really crappy isn't a serious war drama.
Right.
It's like something that makes you feel light, and I'm lucky to have those in my life and to provide some respite for people from their lives, But then I really enjoyed making, some of those movies for sure. And I loved, Water for Elephants was a really fun experience for me too. I got to spend 5 months circus training with an elephant.
Crazy.
I was like, this has got to be a joke.
Yeah.
That I get to go every day and hang out with an elephant. And go to circus school, and I'm paid, and then they pay me.
Right, that's crazy.
That's crazy. That was a really exciting job.
One that I think is very underrated is How Do You Know, the one with Jim Brooks that you did with Paul Rudd, and I know the title. You guys didn't have a title until like 2 months before the thing came out, and that's always
sucks.
and that's not a good title.
It's just sucked, that title.
I know it's not a great title. The movie's better than the title. But Jim Brooks, that's a unique experience to work with him, I'm sure.
Yeah, Jim Brooks, I met him right after the Oscar, and he said, I'm writing a movie for you. And I was like, you are? And broadcast news Holly Hunter's performance in that movie is a movie that made me want to be an actor. So I was so excited, and probably a year and a half later, he said, I have a script. And it took us about 2 years to make that movie. About a year of casting and about a year of shooting. And it was long. It was a long process.
Yeah. I want to talk about Mud. And it's not a lead role for you, but I just think it's such a fascinating film and such an interesting choice for you to do that one. What was it about that you said, I've got to be a part of it, even though it's not the lead of the film? Yeah,
well, I was getting a lot of feedback from people that directors didn't want to offer me things that I wasn't the lead. And I was kind of like, well, I wonder where that is. And they said, well, you haven't really done anything with the lead of a lot of movies. Right. So This came along, and I'd seen Jeff Nichols' other work, Shotgun Stories and Take Shelter, and I just think he's such an interesting, creative, soulful guy, and he is writing stories about where I grew up. Down in the deep South, out in the sticks. People don't have a lot to do. Kids run around and play around in junkyards and creeks, and it was a movie about that. So I was really excited to be part of it.
And as I recall, so much of your stuff was in that very small, tight motel room.
Yeah.
Was it not? What was that like? Did it?
Not luxurious, but fun. It's good to get down to basics with people and kind of strip away all the artifice, all the hair and the makeup and all the cute outfits and everything. And it's like, just be an actor, get back into the work, Where's this person from? What happened to her? The crazy story about that was I got in a car accident 2 weeks before the movie started.
Oh.
So I have a black eye, and the movie is actually a real black eye. And Jeff called me right after the car accident. I was like hit. I was jogging, and I was hit by a car.
Oh.
It was just terrible. It was terrible. And he called me about a week later, and he said, "Are you going to be able to do the movie?" I totally understand. I was like, "No, I think I have to do the movie." And so he wrote it into the character that she had been thrown down the stairs by her ex-husband, and that's why Mud went after him and killed him.
Wow. Oh my God, that's crazy.
It actually added to it, yeah.
So we have to end with my favorite movie of the year, Wild, which I hope you all have seen. And this is a film that you and your production company partner, Bruna Papandrea, produced, as well as you starring in it. And you had the good fortune, and I'd love to know how this all happened, of having Cheryl Strayed send you the book before it was ever released so that you could take a look at it. Thank goodness she did that.
Yeah, thank God. It was interesting because it was kind of a time where I was feeling, we spoke about it, like just lost as an artist, as an actor. I started noticing probably around the writer's strike and 2008, 2009, when all the DVDs went away and we went to, direct to iTunes and all that stuff. Just, there was about a third less parts, Now there's, where there were 10 parts for women during the year, now there were like 6. And I saw all these great actresses clamoring to be the girlfriend in a big dumb comedy. And I thought, this is not what people want to see. People want to see, I want to see interesting, dynamic, complex women, and I want my daughter to see that. I grew up watching Norma Ray and Sigourney Weaver in Working Girl, and Holly Hunter in Raising Arizona, and everything else. And I was like, I can't stomach this anymore. I was thinking about starting a production company. I was like, I gotta do this. Like, I don't want to be part of the problem. I want to be part of the solution. I hate when people say stuff and then don't do anything about it. It drives me bananas. And so at the same time, that same kind of couple months, Cheryl sent me the manuscript for her book. And my agent said, I don't know if we're gonna be interested in this. It sounds really hard. She walked 1,000 miles and she's depressed because her mom died. And I said, that sounds actually really cool. And I read it in 48 hours. I called my agent at midnight that night and I said, I've got to talk to this woman. I don't know who she is, but I need to talk to her. And so I called her at 8 o'clock the next morning, on a Monday morning, cold, out of nowhere. And I said, I don't know who you are, but I feel like I went on that journey with you and I have to hug you. And this is probably one of the best books I've ever read in my entire life. And so I kind of told her why I wanted to make it into a movie and why I was going to make it different than other like female journey to discovery movies that were all like perfect clothes and sparkly sunsets and always getting the guy. And I said, I just think it's so important for not just for women but for men too. So this is a great story of hope that she starts with nothing and she ends with nothing, but it's a happy ending. And that was profound to me. And
so was Cheryl like, well, I've already sent it to 5 other people too? Or were you the chosen one?
I was lucky she had only sent it to me. So she had a list. She was going to hit actresses and she picked me first because she thought I said, why did you pick me? And she said, well, I knew you were from somewhere and that was important to me because she grew up out in the middle of nowhere. And she said, and I think we kind of look alike. because we kind of do look alike. And she said, I'm also, and you don't know it from the book, but I'm really, really funny. And she is. I come to find out, she is actually really funny. She has a great sense of humor.
Let's talk about the pack, because from what I understand, that was quite a heavy, like you were going for realism there with that backpack.
Well, I was not.
Oh.
I was going for movie fake
Styrofoam peanuts.
Yes, some dry cleaner, stuff and newspaper stuffed in there. And then Cheryl was sitting on set. Cheryl's there every single day, and she leaned over to Jean-Marc and she's like, the pack doesn't look heavy enough. And so he came over to me, he was like, what's in the pack? He's French-Canadian. And I said, newspaper or something, I don't know. And he said, okay, we need the other backpack. We need the one that's heavy with all the equipment in it. And I was like, yeah, but I have to walk all day with this on my back. And he doesn't cut. He just shoots digital. So there's no putting it down. There's no breaks. There's no sitting down. There's no going to the bathroom. Like, it was bananas. And there's no other actors to cut to.
Right.
When the other actor, then you can just kind of relax a little bit or take off the pack and stretch a little bit. No, there was nothing. There was literally the front of me and the back of me. So, and he just walked away and he was like, okay, action. And that was it for the rest of the movie. He really challenged me, and I'm so appreciative of everything he pushed me to do. He was like, I want you to wear no makeup. And I was like, well, but just like a little eyeliner. And he was like, no makeup. None. I love your face. I just want to see this woman stripped of everything. I want to feel like she's lost everything. And I was like, okay, but that's going to be awful. It's going to look awful. And he made me be brave, and he made me do it. And I'm so appreciative to him pushing me outside my comfort zone, and because I feel like you would have seen it, and it would have been fake. And after a while, it started to feel like, I was in a documentary about Cheryl Strayed's life, because I couldn't stop.
There's so many magical moments in Wild, and the one that I'm never going to forget is that little boy who sings you the song at the end. And I'm sure it just wrecked me in the best possible way. And I'm sure it's very hard when you're dealing with an actor that young that you're never going to get it. It's not like as seamless on the day as it is edited together. But what was that like for you on that actual day of shooting? I mean, did he deliver each time, or was it hard?
That kid was so intense, and he knew his parts. His name was Evan O'Toole. He's incredible. He had these beautiful little blue eyes, and he had this curly hair, and it was raining, and he just kept saying, I'm hungry. And then so we'd give him a granola bar, and he'd be like, okay. And then we'd say, okay, can you sing the song? And he just sang so beautifully from his heart, remember the Red River Valley. And when he started to sing, everybody on the crew started crying because he took it so seriously. And Jean-Marc had him, on the day, he changed the song. He said, I want you to learn a new song.
Why?
And he wanted to try a Nirvana song, to have him sing this Nirvana song, which, by the way, I hope one day people get to see it, because that wrecked me too. It was so beautiful. He sings All Apologies.
Oh,
he
wow.
sings it so beautifully. He's like, all apologies. Oh my God. It was crazy. But, having Cheryl sort of reflect on her journey and doing the editing that Jean-Marc did, where he jumps back and forth to her looking at these beautiful vistas and remembering her mother and everything her mother will never see again. Jean-Marc used to say, I want you to look at this and remember that your mother will never see this again. And seeing it through this beautiful little boy's eyes, and seeing how hurt he is, and that he has problems too, and that we're all broken, I've had more people come up to me and say, I feel less broken. I saw the movie, and men, women, older people, younger kids, I just feel less alone, and that's all we set out to do,
I love it.
And that's the most profound thing, you know?
Yeah.
Cheryl always says the most profound thing you can do as an artist is build that sacred bridge to the audience, because nothing can ever take that away. Once you've done it, it's there forever. And
You're still so
amazing.
moved
I'm
by
so
this.
moved by it.
I love that. If there was the happiest surprise for me as someone who's obsessed with the Oscars, it was the fact that not only, of course, did you get nominated, because duh, but that Laura Dern did too,
I
because
know.
she hadn't gotten any nominations. So I was really happy for that. But one thing that you and I were talking about is before we came on, which I think is kind of weird and troubling, is if you look at, and this happens every year, I feel like, you look at the movies that are up for all the big ones, like Best Director and Best Picture, they completely line up with the Best Actor category. So Eddie Redmayne, Theory of Everything, Benedict Cumberbatch, Imitation Game, Michael Keaton, Birdman, Steve Carell, Foxcatcher, Bradley Cooper, American Sniper. All of the movies that dominate the overall awards race are male leads. And that you guys have this movie, which is the best movie of the year. You have 2 acting nominations, and yet it didn't get in the major categories. What's going on there?
I don't know. And I keep getting asked this a lot because, we're like 93 on Rotten Tomatoes. Our movies made more money than Birdman, Theory of Everything, Boyhood, Nightcrawler. I mean, it's set to be the number 2 or 3 specialty film of the year, which is so exciting, and it's clear the audience is really they want this movie, and that's the big message. It's not about awards. It's really about let's make more of these movies that are hopeful and give people, a sense of why we're here on Earth. Like, are we here to shoot people and blow people up? I think people want to see people's real life struggles, and and I think it's a hurdle we have to get over. Like, there's not more female lead movies that are considered part of the conversation, and we got close. We got really close.
You did, right.
And we're gonna keep trying. That's the bottom line. We have to just keep trying. We all do, And I want everybody to keep writing these stories and keep telling your stories, because just like Cheryl said in the movie, everybody's life is precious, sacred, and irrevocable, and everyone's story deserves to be told. And hopefully this will inspire so many more people to tell their stories.
I like that. Okay, with the 4 minutes that we have left, we're going to do a speed round of the 5 great audience questions that we got from you guys.
Okay, cool.
And you guys have the worst handwriting. I can hardly read this. Well, actually, this guy's okay, Steve. You're okay. Steve wants to know, how do you choose your projects? How hard do you have to work to find a script that you want to do?
It's really hard. And then once you find the script, again, there's not that many great roles for actresses. So particularly, as I'm kind of bridging the gap too between, younger 30s and then moving on to the moms, because there's kind of a bridge there. There's like a weird fallow period where there's people don't know what to do with women that age. If you're not a mom, what are you? You're not a mom, but you're not 29. It's really confusing. So I'm just trying to figure out kind of that in-between thing. And I'm working on developing a lot of stuff. A lot of bestsellers and books are actually women's stories. So that's been a really great, fertile place to find inspiration and get manuscripts. And we probably have 16 projects now. They're all female leads.
And we should mention that you produced Gone Girl.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
My friend Gillian wrote that book, and
Yes.
I'm just so in awe of everything that she was able to do with your help on that one.
She's amazing, yeah.
Okay, this is from, I'm hoping I'm going to say it right, Carolina? Yes. Hi, Carolina. This is a great question. First of all, I don't understand it. Say this question's for Reese Witherspoon.
I know what that means.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Yeah, because somebody asked me what my rap name is, and I said Little Spoon.
Nice. Going off what I just said about Gone Girl, when did you first decide to venture into producing? Do you find that allows you more creative freedom? I think it probably does.
Yeah, and it I get to be an authority on what I know, which is women, because I am a woman. And I will go into studios, and I went through a lot of meetings in my late 20s and early 30s talking about sitting with studio heads and studio executives going, well, that makes her unlikable. Like, if she sleeps with somebody that's not her husband, that's really unlikable. And if she uses drugs, I mean, that's really there's no coming back. No one will ever like her at the end of the movie. So I decided to come at it a different approach, and be really part of the development process has been helpful, because I can go into a room and say, no, actually women do cheat on their husbands too. And they actually are redeemable people. They do make, amends for it, and they say sorry, and maybe they're, not perfect, but there's some people who are just not perfect in this world, and there's a lot of them, and I'm one of them. So I think people actually want to see themselves. And I think, storytelling has changed too, that people used to want to see more artifice, I feel like, and people are they want real. We have so much in our lives, but it's so nice to see the truth. And that's why I responded to Cheryl Strayed. She just told the truth. Not because it certainly didn't make her look good. But it made her feel free.
Here's a great follow-up. And Becky Dennis, you have impeccable handwriting. It's gorgeous.
Becky.
It's gorgeous.
Good.
Beautiful.
A+.
Becky says, do you find it a challenge balancing producing and acting? Do you have advice for aspiring actor-producers on how to juggle the two goals in harmony, and which to focus more on if the first love is acting?
That's a really good question, because it would be impossible if I didn't have my producing partner. So we do all the development together. But whatever, when I get on set, I have to be an actress. That's it. And I can't, occasionally Bruno would bring me in and say, look, we need to work on something 3 days from now, and we have to get this crane, and I need you to call the studio. But for the most part, she did all that heavy lifting. So it's really important that somebody you trust, you have the same kind of taste. Their taste level has to be at the same place as you, and you have to kind of like similar things. But definitely I have to take off the producer hat when I'm actually on set. So that's a good question.
And then Kat wants to know, who have you not worked with yet that you'd like to?
Ooh. Julianne Moore. I would love to do something with Julianne Moore.
What could you do with her?
So much.
I know.
I mean, what can she not do?
I know.
She's amazing. Jessica Chastain, I think, is incredibly talented. Viola Davis, dying to work with her. Kerry Washington and I have been trying to find something for years and years. But again, it's hard. A lot of women aren't usually in movies together, but I'm going to change that.
I can't think of a better note to end on than that. Reese Witherspoon, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for the great questions.